My name is Maria Selva. I am running for U.S. Congress, District 29. I grew up in Houston. I've lived here 42 years. I graduated from Rice University, and I have been involved in nonprofits, working and volunteering most of my adult life. Government no longer has the best interest of the people. Corporate and special interests are now generating profits for the sake of profits rather than having the whole balance of society in mind. They are there for profits, of course, but they cannot be there at the expense of the welfare and interest of the people. So we need to bring that back into a balance in which we are not jeopardized. Our economy, our health, our welfare is not sold out to corporate profits. The lack of government oversight in the finance and banking industries has led to almost a worldwide collapse of the economic system. It's impacted mortgages, our homes, our jobs. Businesses can't get loans. This has had a devastating cascading effect throughout the country, throughout the world, and all because warning signs were not heeded. Nobody was watching over such an important sector of our economy. Government has let their responsibilities fall. Corporates can pursue profits as much as they like, as long as they keep it in balance and don't jeopardize our finance, our housing, our welfare in general. They cannot do this at the expense of democracy, of the people, of our own lives and welfare. As long as they keep things in balance, they can pursue their profits as much as they like. It's not an either or, it's both together. They pursue profits as long as they have people's interests in mind. There's many instances in which something that may not be obvious at first sight is correlated one thing to another. With the rise of contract employment and temporary work and sending jobs overseas, where we now have a diminished and weakened workforce in terms of people's ability to get paid, that has coincided with the concept of the so-called accordion families, where children now go get an education, start to work, but even though they're employed, don't make enough money that they can live on their own, so they come back and live with the parents. This is a worldwide phenomenon that has only arisen after the rise of contract employment, where people are not getting the full benefits and package of a regular employment the way we once had it. So even though it's not obvious at first sight that this diminished employment capacity coincides with people changing their entire family structure, where people cannot make it on their own even though they're working full-time. Another way in which the government is not taking their responsibilities to heart is in agriculture. We now have genetically modified food, and we cannot choose. We are not told what can be or not be. People have tried to pass laws to force the labeling of genetically modified food, and those have been blocked at every turn by companies that have a vested interest in that. Consumers want to know what they're eating, what's on their plate. People have the right to know that, and yet people ethically have the right to know that. However, government is not allowing us that right to know what is in our plate and what is going into our bodies. That can have major health consequences. People can have allergic reactions to one thing that has the genes of another plant that they weren't even told they had. People simply have the right to know what's in their food. There's also the lack of government oversight in industrial matters. Fracking, for example. We now have literally minor earthquakes being caused by fracking that is causing tears and structural weaknesses in buildings, in people's homes, because fracking is allowed to have underground explosions which trigger mini earthquakes above ground, as well as poisoning our water supply. So we have a right to have clean water. If you take a sip of water out of your kitchen tap, you have the right to know that it's not poisoned, because some special interest decided that it was better to make a profit from developing gas this way than for you to have clean drinking water and live in a structure that is not slowly being weakened and structurally torn apart. Now, the fracking, I consider that to fall under the industrial regulation, but there's also the concept of tax subsidies to oil and gas industries. They are the wealthiest companies on the planet, and yet they have special tax breaks, when tax breaks were meant to incentivize new development, new growth, and new opportunities. We need to develop clean energy rather than spending our tax dollars to the richest companies in the planet. We need to develop an energy safety. We have safety measures in terms of national security. Energy is a national security issue. We need to develop clean energy, not just for the sake of the environment, for the sake of ourselves and not having poisoned water and dirty air, but it's also a national security issue that we need to be energy independent, but through clean energy. We went to war supposedly because of 9/11. However, we invaded Iraq rather than the source of Al-Qaeda. We need to spend money at home domestically instead of spending money to raise the infrastructure of foreign countries. Our own infrastructure is falling apart. We're bombing children and families. We need to be spending this money at home to develop our own structure, our own resources, and stop killing children and families abroad. Basically, special interests have colluded with the government, and both sides are going to the other one in order to maximize their own interests. Government officials want to stay in office, special interests want to maximize profit. But what's left out of the equation is the people, society, our infrastructure, our homes, our families, the whole picture of what makes America a great democracy. All of that has been thrown out the window in this collusion between government and power structures, special interests. We need to get the middleman out of the picture and get back to democracy for the people. I want your vote. I have not been in Washington ever. I am not a political insider. I have not spent decades in Washington. I want to reform the system. I want to get things back to a working, functional government. Not too much government that it's on our backs. They need to regulate industry and special interests where they are not impinging on our health and our welfare and our whole way of life. My email is selvamar, my last name Selva, S-E-L, V as in Victor A, M-A-R, @hotmail.com. Please email me. Thank you.